Welcome to Lifestyles with Nick. I'm your host, and today we talk with Justin Jedlica, who is also known as the Human Ken Doll. Hello, Justin.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. What have you been up to?
Trying to help my mom get her house for sale, and realtors here, and fix-it crews, and floors, and carpeting, and...
Wow, it sounds like you have been extremely busy, so I won't waste any more of your time. So, Justin, how many surgeries have you had done so far?
I've had 149 cosmetic procedures at this point.
And how long do you wait until the next surgery?
I try to span out my larger surgeries about a year apart, but it doesn't always work out like that. It just sort of depends. It's sort of like if I need it, then sure, I'll commit to it. But once I've started the process of having one surgery, if sometimes I wanted to go back and retweak, I'll wait a few months, 3 months, 4 months, and go back, and then I'll retweak again if it's necessary. But otherwise, I typically wait about another year before I move on to another body part.
Now, why do you have to retweak things? Is it just not good enough for you, or how does that work?
No, I think, in all honesty, a lot of the procedures that I'm embarking on at this point are procedures that haven't been done before. So the doctors and myself go in with it with the knowledge that, one, if not both of us, will probably want to go back and sort of reposition things. Like when I'm working with my shoulder implants were 6 different pieces. So the anterior, posterior, and lateral delt on each arm. And I decided I wanted to devise implants for all 3 sections. And nothing like that exists on the market. So in order to do that, I had to custom make the pieces. And, the doctor and I had to work in tandem to sort of decide what placement we wanted and sort of the look we wanted to go for with it. So not to say that the first surgery was unsatisfactory. It was a step in the right direction, but it did require, some small tweaks to go back to where we were both happy, to a tune of 90%. You can't expect 100% with any procedure. If you get 90%, it's a success. So it just took us a couple more little bits to get it right.
Now, what are those surgeries that haven't ever been done before?
Right now, the ones that I'm interested in doing would be my latissimus muscles, so the wings or the lats on your back. So I'm working with the doctor right now, and we templated for implants. So that will be a first, to my knowledge. Additionally, to put an 8-pack of solid silicone implants into my abdominal muscles. So to me, that's also a first. While they do have things like liposculpting and ab etching, for that purpose, I don't have any fat to be able to take out of those areas, so I have to add in order to gain that definition. And so the other ones I've worked on are quadricep implants, and I'm doing 2-piece calf implants, which are different than what you see on the market now. While calf implants do exist, they don't exist in the way that I'm going to attempt to do them. I just think that the male side of plastic surgery is a niche market that's been sort of neglected, and there's no reason for it other than the fact that people say men don't want it. But I think the more that you see it in the media and the more you have someone like me and other people who are open about their surgeries, you'll see that more men will come forward to be able to have body modification to the tune that I have and or for the purposes of reconstructive reasons.
Very interesting. So what is the purpose of it for you then?
The purpose for me, I guess, initially it started out when I was in my teens. I was 17 when I wanted to have my first nose job, and I started looking for doctors to consult with. And after I went on 3 consultations, I narrowed it down to this doctor, and I had to get my parents' permission, of which they wouldn't allow me to have my first nose job until I was 18. So when I was 18, I had my first. To me, that came from a need. I really needed that in my life because I felt like I had something to fix. After I had that one surgery, I realized I didn't need any of the surgeries after that. It became more of a want. And if I had the money and I had the time to be able to do the recovery, then why not be able to sort of amend myself to whatever I wanted to see? People do that in all different aspects of their life. Fashion comes in and out, and the trends change, and, people change their wardrobe and shift that around. We do maintenance on our cars and on our house. It depends what your motivation is, but, mine kind of came from this stance that, I don't feel overly committed to this human form. I have the power to be able to change it, and if I have the means to be able to change it, then why not? No one's going to sit here and dictate to me what I can and can't do with my own body. I don't claim that it has to be for everybody, but for me, it's become a way for myself to validate my artistic eye. I've always been into painting and sculpting. And, I view this as an extension of that. It's a way for me to be creative And, the added media attention does add a new level of excitement to sort of be able to push those stories and show my skills to other people, to the public.
Elaborate more on the artistic factor of it all. You were on Dr. Drew, and at that point, you were at 90 surgeries. Now, you had said to him that you wanted to be displayed as a piece of art or that you were an art form. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Well, I mean, I'm lucky enough to be able to say that I get to use my body instead of having to have a canvas. I mean, I get to wear my artwork on my body. I think a lot of my motivation stems from more along the lines of the body mod subculture. So it doesn't really come from a want to fit in and look like everybody else as much as it's exciting to me to think of myself more as a nonconformist, actually. And I realize that maybe the more surgeries I have, other people will come and say, well, you've overdone it or you've gone too far. But in the end, I've done all these procedures really for myself. And so if other people don't like the way that they've come out, I really don't care. And I think, people, obviously we have a lot of references to the Ken doll and, that as far as being the optimal male aesthetic. And it's what you're taught from as a kid, that this is sort of what handsome young men look like. Sure, we can go under those lines of symmetry and beauty to sort of say that I've used that as an inspiration piece. But the same thing for me could equally be said, if not more so, about manga, anime, and hentai, sort of that over-stylized, cartoonish human form. That's sort of more of an appealing notion for me as far as a level of attraction. And I don't know, it's kind of exciting to just realize that I have the power to sculpt myself in that way.
That is exciting. Now, where did the name Human Ken doll come from?
Well, the Human Ken doll, I was dubbed the Human Ken doll initially by 2020. I did a piece with them where I had models for a gentleman years ago when I lived in New York City, and he was doing a piece about people who had severely remodeled their looks to their own tune of beauty, not necessarily what Western culture would have deemed beautiful. And I was part of this work of art that he had several series of, and he ended up turning it into a book. 2020 had approached him and said they wanted to speak with somebody, who was very verbal about their surgeries, but also was very hands-on in the development of their physical form and their change. And he thought of me right away and called me. And so I shot with them for 4 days, and then they ended up coming to me, and I watched the piece, and the opening line was, "Meet Justin Jedlica, our human Ken doll, whose upper body is filled with silicone implants."
Wow.
And from there, people took it literally. So it was definitely not in my forethought of my brain, the forefront of my brain, to be able to make myself look like a Ken doll. If people think I do, then that's great. But it really was sort of just by chance. I think at the time you had Balleria in the media a little bit before I had sort of come into play. And people, I think, were just looking to assimilate, a Barbie and a Ken figure. And so, of course, it goes in tandem. She kind of started her fame off of this story that she had surgery to look like Barbie. And then, I kind of stepped into the spotlight with this heavy-duty surgery story, and I was a fairly young man. So it was sort of on par with, I think, what the media was looking to sort of make. but I mean, I don't have any negative association to the name. I actually think it's pretty flattering.
Now, you just met Valeria, also known as Barbie, for the first time. Is that correct?
Well, actually, I met her a while ago on a shoot with Inside Edition, and it was an interesting meet. I guess there wasn't any severe disdain, more than it was just awkward. She's very kind of stoic. I have to also say she doesn't speak much English, to her benefit. I don't want to put it out there that we were completely angry at each other. I mean, she had, I think, misconstrued some things I said about, her being an illusionist and that it wasn't any different than what you'd see most drag queens do, basically stating that what she's doing is theatrical and she's only dressing up for the cameras, which is very cool. And it doesn't mean that that's not her art form. It is, but, she's not a plastic surgery story. She's not living with any conviction to put on that persona or that look on a daily basis. And my modifications are something I wear with the consistency. I wake up and I go to sleep looking the same way as I do every day. And if people think that that's looking like a doll, then okay, then I'm doing that every day. She's playing dress up in front of the cameras. There's no surgery involved. She's warping and photoshopping her pictures. And I think her images are beautiful. And there are tons of artists that do that with Photoshop. And I applaud them for it. It doesn't mean it's without having talent. It's just that is not the everyday reality of who they are and what they look like. So to me, in a way, you're selling something that's false to the public, and people for some reason are buying that it's true. Equally so, her piece in GQ magazine I thought was really kind of weird. The fact that she was sort of telling people that the reason there's an increase in plastic surgery is because we have intermixing of the races. I mean, it's like she's preaching Nazism. It's like, it's a little bit crazy to sort of put out there, especially when you have a lot of adoring fans, specifically little girls that are looking up to you as Barbie, right? And you're going out there sort of saying that a multi-ethnic look isn't something that classically can be thought of as beautiful. Beauty comes in lots of forms. So that combined with the fact she's telling people she's living on air and light alone, I mean, they're ridiculous stories. They're trumped up. It just seems like she's not really doing anything with her fame besides selling these like ridiculous tales to the Sun and to these other magazines, and people are still buying it. I mean, and all she's doing is perpetuating really bad eating habits for little girls to think, oh, in order to be thin, I have to be anorexic. Like Barbie does it, I should do it too. Like, and if you're not this typical Nordic look blue blonde, then you're not beautiful. I completely disagree. I mean, I'm somebody actually who I love a multi-ethnic look. I mean, a lot of what I pulled from ideals of beauty, I think, has stemmed from the fact that I, have traveled around the world and seen lots of different cultures and met a lot of different people. And so it's broadened the spectrum of what I found beautiful. I don't by any means think that I'm trying to look like any white supremacist, which is sort of kind of seems what her agenda was pushing in that part of that article.
Now, you said to GQ magazine that you don't really get her. Is it because she is this illusionist, or what is it?
I don't understand why. I mean, if basically you've come to fame riding on the coattails of a plastic surgery story, which was that she had spent 600,000 pounds. I think that's about $1.3 million by the age of 23 was what they were claiming, in order to look like Barbie. Well, then she kind of didn't deny or really accept that as a truth or negate it in public, and she really doesn't do any public appearances because she doesn't really look like that on a regular. But, she didn't confirm or deny it to the public, and then everyone made the assumption it was true. So people gave her more clout and kept trying to read into her story, which is a plastic surgery story. And then she comes out 2 years later on Inside Edition and says, well, no, I just had breast implants. Well, I mean, if all it takes is extensions, color contacts, and breast implants to be a plastic surgery celebrity or a public figure, then 3/4 of the women in LA should all have their own TV show. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. What are you here for? I mean, if there's nothing really different about you except that you're a little girl playing dress up, I mean, I don't see how that's that applaudable than so many other people who I actually know have talent and use it in performing and in the arts. I mean, okay, then go and put it to good use and go star in a show or go try to do something else with it except sell these little pictures and sort of sell these retarded stories. It's just, I guess it's solely for tabloid entertainment, but it doesn't seem very meaningful to me. I've tried to use some of the celebrity that I've gotten over the last couple of years to start a business, and now I do a plastic surgery referral and consulting service. We pair patients with specialists in the field of whatever it is they're trying to achieve, whether that's beautification, rejuvenation, or reconstruction. So, I'm trying to sort of put a positive spin on all this and not make it so centric on myself and sort of say, okay, although I have attained a certain level of skill with plastic surgery and my knowledge of the products and different doctors, so I'd love to be able to give back and help people through the same process that I have to sort of go through without having someone hold my hand. And for me to be an advocate for the public, it's a great feeling for me. Plastic surgery is definitely a passion of mine.
Interesting. So there is definitely going to be no Barbie Dream House coming your way.
I don't think there'll be a Barbie Dream House with me in it.
Okay, good. Also, you had said to GQ magazine that you have always wanted to be on the lifestyles of the rich and famous. Talk about your childhood, and can you explain it till now?
I grew up, I was the oldest of 4 siblings, and we really didn't have any extra money. We were fairly lower income. I lived on a dirt driveway, and we built our chimney on our house and had a freestanding coal burning stove that we filled with coal twice a day and took out the ash pan to heat our house. And things were pretty simple. There wasn't a lot extra to go around. We weren't starving by any means, but there was definitely no traveling, no flying anywhere. My life was pretty small as far as we had our library in our area was basically a little house. and 12 little channels on television. And that was sort of the exposure that we had to things like the arts and to different types of beauty and entertainment. It was pretty limited and small. And, I always did have aspirations to sort of be like this lifestyles of the rich and famous. And it seemed something totally unattainable and silly as a kid, I guess. But, a lot of these like icons in pop culture for me, Michael Jackson, you look at Joan Rivers, a lot of that luxury to me, of what I would think of as being rich was also assimilated with luxury items. One of those definitely being plastic surgery. And so when I became of age where I wanted to be able to fix my nose, it was the one thing I think I felt like I could afford on a small level. And, I had that first surgery and the sense of confidence and self-esteem that I was able to pull from that surgery was really pretty amazing for me. And it definitely sort of is a big pull for me to continue to go back and have more surgery. But I guess sort of that whole idea where it gave me a confidence and then therefore allowed me to push my life into a better place. And instead of sort of going with the grain and doing what everybody else told me to do, I sort of owned my difference in what it was that I found interesting. And it kept leading me into these spaces where I was having more surgery, and then I would meet these housewives, and I ended up moving to New York City, and the whole pool of people that I was exposed to began to broaden. And it really became my niche to be such a young guy with all this surgery, but people loved that I was so honest and open with my whole experience. And, that led me to eventually meet my husband, and my husband's a successful business owner, and, equally so, obviously, he mentors me with my new company. And, so now we have a very nice lifestyle. We both travel the world. We live in Trump Tower at this point. And, my life is nothing like what it used to be, but I really attribute that to owning the difference in myself and really not trying to conform and fit in with people, because I think that, my talent and what I had to offer people would have been smothered out.
Very fascinating, and such a great outlook you have on it. Now, I saw on your Facebook that you have photos of your loft, which is immaculate. How have you gotten to this point that you can live such a luxury lifestyle and still can afford these surgeries?
Well, I guess it's almost like a two-part. When I was single, everybody has a hierarchy of things that they deem important to them. And, for someone to say, oh, well, I can't afford plastic surgery, it just means what else are you willing to do without? Is it that important to you? So, for some people, they validate themselves by buying themselves that Chanel bag or the Louis Vuitton piece of luggage, or, they want to save up for their one vacation a year, or they're going to buy a new car, or they're going to buy a new house. And none of those things are wrong. If it validates you as an individual, if it gives you a goal to get to and to strive to for your business, your career, and that's something that either you need to buy to feel like you're prepared to move into that and work hard enough to be able to excel in that area, then it's done its job. So for me, it was important for me to feel like I was going to have that surgery and to look forward to it and be able to save that money. I've never financed a single procedure. I really don't agree with financing procedures that are cosmetic. So I've always saved the cash or I didn't do it. And, it's just a matter of kind of cutting back and on a lot of the other things that a lot of my other friends validated spending their money on, I didn't. So this was just something that, I made sure it was foremost in my thoughts. And, now that I'm married with my partner and our life is much more free flow, we're able to travel a lot. And we are legally married, so it's our money to be split between the two of us, to our husbands. So, we do consult each other about all of our expenses. And when we decide to spend money, it's something that we agree upon together.
How did you meet your husband? And do you find yourself picking out things that are wrong with him to get fixed?
I actually met my partner in London. I was on vacation with a couple of friends, and he happened to be flying through, and he was there on business. And so we sort of met and just, started dating casually, and we moved pretty quickly with things as far as when we moved in. And we've just recently gotten married since they repealed DOMA, actually, in July. But prior to that, it just didn't really seem like it was really all that worth it until it was federally recognized. But no, I think if anything, he may have gotten a bit of the bug from me, but it doesn't stem from me at all being critical. I love that my husband's kind of all-American, and he's very sort of like simple when it comes to those things. He's adorable, and he really doesn't have an artistic bone in his body. He's really great at business. But if anything, I think maybe him being around me has him looking more in the mirror. But I mean, I like my husband the way he is, and he's sort of masculine and wholesome, and I enjoy that about him. But if he chooses to go and modify something and change something, as long as it's for him to be happy and he's not doing it because he thinks it's going to change my opinion of him, then, I totally support him.
Now, is he really supportive of you as well?
100%, actually. I mean, even before we got married, we had the discussion about my surgeries, and that he knew that wasn't going to go away, and other things I could deal without, but at least once a year I got to splurge. I think it's good to be able to say you treat yourself and you invest in yourself. So, some people go to the spa. I just decide to go to the wellness center and have a cosmetic procedure. It's really not all that different, but there's definitely a talk that we had. And he always says that my plastic surgery actually turns him on.
Wow. Now, do you have only one surgeon that you go to, or do you have multiple?
As much as I'd love to say that I had one surgeon, it's just not feasible. With where I am right now, a lot of the work that I've had done, I pride myself in saying that I found specialists, and that with that comes, you're going to have doctors that are just going to say, it's not my area, my specialty area, and I actually respect when someone says that to me. So, like I have a facial guy that I do go to. I've gone to him for my last 3 nose revisions, and so I sort of go through and I like to pick out the characteristics that I like that each doctor has been able to offer when they do have a surgery on somebody. So I sort of look at a lot of the before and afters. I'm sort of in the mix with a lot of the nurses for aftercare, and I think a lot of that comes with a lot of referrals. But I don't have one doctor because a lot of the procedures I'm doing now, there are a lot of doctors who don't want to take the risk of doing a new procedure that they really don't know a ton about or how it's going to come about, and they already have a thriving practice, and they just don't want to deal with the headache of starting something new. I mean, I look at it as a great opportunity to advance your skill and to work on somebody who's really not going to flip out if it's not done right the first time around. And as long as I have a willing party to sort of start all of this, and I just want to know that they're going to finish it. So, to me, it's a collaborative process, and I take just as much responsibility as I would put onto the doctor. So, it's just hard to find doctors that are willing to sort of conceptualize these new procedures and really be able to think that they can carry them out. And with the added media exposure, some people think it would be a positive, but it's a little more of a negative because these doctors are going to be scrutinized not only for their surgical technique, but also, because they're working on somebody who has had so many surgeries. Now, while I can guarantee you all the doctors that have worked on me would work on me again, to sit here and listen to a lot of banter with the media, you only get about 7 minutes typically to sort of get somebody's story, and you really don't get the whole background on their motivations. I'm not somebody who's been unsatisfied with my surgery or who is unsatisfied with my body. I mean, I like to change it because it's fun and it's creative, and I think of it in a very light way. I'm not a depressed or upset individual. I mean, obviously, I enjoy all of the attention that I get, and it's not about having OCD or BDD, which is something that I'm always criticized as having by these therapists who've never even met me or had the opportunity to sit down and speak with me. So, I mean, that's completely unprofessional in itself, but it's something I realize I'll deal with forever for as long as I do television.
Now, I definitely want to talk with you more about that in just a minute. But first, I want to go back to your doctors. Now, you said that they said no because of the fact that they maybe aren't in that type of field, or
Sure.
that they're nervous to, do a surgery like that. Have you ever had them say no, though, because of health concerns with you?
No, it's never happened.
Interesting. Can you talk to me more about being criticized? Because I saw you on many different stations, and each one you were just being ripped apart. And I felt so bad for you because of the fact that you had no control over it. You couldn't do anything about it because it's either live or it's recorded, and then they edit it to the way that they want it. So can you talk about that?
These shows appear like they're live, and they are pre-recorded, and then, they edit out the portions that they don't really want to have there. I mean, especially if you dig up dirt on your hosts or hostesses that are coming for you, a lot of times that stuff gets excluded. I mean, they're looking for the over-sensationalized version to really put out the picture that they have in their head that they think that it's going to make ratings. So it's really not about all the time what the truth is as much as what's going to sell.
Many of the doctors that are on these shows are coming after you and saying that there is something in your past life that has to be screwed up in order to live this sort of lifestyle. So what do you think about that?
The truth is, these doctors that are ridiculing me on stage are not doctors who've ever met me. I mean, they're brought on there to sort of give a background opinion about the basics of obsessive compulsive and body dysmorphic disorder, which I think that I'm very well versed in. I've done a lot of studies on them, and I've talked to plenty of therapists about them. My motivations don't lie anywhere within that bracket. I mean, those are people who have an unrealistic vision of themselves when they look in the mirror. They're people that continue obsessed about one body part to where it's exacerbated to something that's just not the truth in reality. I think I have a very clear picture of myself. I mean, I've definitely had procedures on areas where I said, okay, this is great, I'm happy with this. And, you know, you shelter for a while. And then, you know, if you ever have the want to come back and revisit, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to. I mean, we see people who do extreme sports. We see bodybuilders who push massive amounts of weight, people who push the physical form to the furthest realms of what you would ever assume, you know, would even be healthy. And yet, you know, and we call them the Olympics. and we applaud them, and everybody watches them on TV and says how amazing they are. And you have me out there, and I'm like, you know, Christ strapped up on the cross for people to lash at. And it's fine. Like, if that's the cross I have to bear in order to get my point across, it's just that, you know, I think people have this ingrained sense that you should be happy with what God gave you, is what I always hear, or you should be happy with what you're born with. And the truth is, we're in an era where you don't have to be. You don't have to accept anything you don't want to. And the only person that limits you is yourself. And that stands true in your class level. I was brought up poor. I'm not poor anymore. I'm part of the upper class. I didn't accept what was fed to me from a young age. I didn't have to go buy into that job where I was only going to make $15,000 or $20,000 a year. Now, if I followed the grain and I went with the sheep, right, and listened to what everybody else told me, then I would probably be in that same situation and still be struggling. And instead, I stood out on my own. I owned what it was I loved. I owned my difference. And I think I'm a better person for it. I mean, otherwise, I mean, these shows wouldn't be sitting there talking to me unless I was a person who had very strong convictions about what I'm doing. I just think sort of what these doctors are doing are tainting the audience. They're instilling fear in a lot of areas that really could be a positive for some people. And I'm not saying plastic surgery is for everybody, but I've seen it make amazing differences in a lot of people's lives. So to discount the power that something that an aesthetic change can do for somebody's inside, I just think that that's a little bit premature, and I think it's just over sensationalizing an issue where, you know, they're just looking to hype it up for ratings.
Now, what is the surgery that has caused you the most pain?
You know, typically I don't find the surgeries painful. They're uncomfortable, yes. I think my first shoulder surgery, from what I remember of it, was fairly painful for the first few days. But you get past it and you're on your pain meds. And I always have a good support group of people around me. I think the power of positive thinking is amazing, especially when you're healing from any procedure. It's always hard because you always look worse before you look better. But typically I stage what I call recovery houses. So I'll fly out my mom and my sister and my brothers. My husband comes, and, you know, we'll invite a ton of my friends, and we'll rent a little McMansion in Beverly Hills somewhere. And everyone just sort of comes out, and we have a party. And it's sort of a bit celebration of a new chapter in my life, more than looking at healing as drudgery. So I guess, you know, my shoulders were fairly tedious in the beginning. And then, you know, with the 3 other tweaks I had after the originals, there wasn't really much pain at all. But when you're cutting into flesh, muscle, it's going to have some level of discomfort.
It's definitely going to hurt a little bit, you know, in some way.
For sure.
Yeah. Now, is it hard for you to find clothes that fit? Because, you know, your body is a completely different shape than the normal shape.
Well, I do have to have a really good tailor. So I typically even have my T-shirts tailored. Not to say you have to, but I guess as I've gotten older, I've preferred a look that was a little more fitted. So I think of my body as my costume, so I typically try to wear as little as possible. But I definitely do go and have a lot of my items altered, but no different than I do with my body.
I definitely noticed that you do wear as little clothes as possible in your Facebook photos, you know, constantly either in underwear or something else, you know.
I'm a little bit of an attention whore.
Exactly, yes. Now, are you worried about the procedures moving?
No. If people have studied it all up in medicine, I mean, they realize that it depends, obviously, what products you're speaking about, but things like those solid silicone implants I have in my body, I mean, when the body sort of, or when the doctors enter, they cut a pocket, and that pocket is typically sutured around. They put the implant in, and then over the course of the next 2 weeks, your body builds up a fibrotic capsule of scar tissue around it. And while that might sound scary, of course you have scar tissue around any foreign object that's being inserted or injected into your body. And that's your body's process of sort of walling off a foreign matter. But that being said, it also acts as a great way to bind around that implant and cause a casing for it, which is what helps keep it in place. So, that's a good thing. I really don't worry about those things shifting unless you ended up in some sort of major accident. It really shouldn't be an issue.
Now, what is your concern with the aging process?
I'm not somebody who is overly scared of getting old. People consistently, when I tell them the number of procedures I've had, they think that I've had facelifts and that I've done a ton of anti-aging. I don't really think I had. I'm only 33 years old. I've never had a facelift. I've never really gone and done my eyes or anything like that. That would sort of be like turning back the hands of time. But, I would definitely have maintenance as I need it. I mean, I try to go ahead and do fractional resurfacing on my skin. I do Botox every 3 to 4 months to sort of prevent those lines from coming in. But it's not something that I'm really worked up about. I mean, obviously, with each year as I've gotten older, my life has gotten better. So I look forward to getting older. I don't necessarily need to look old, but I don't think that it's going to be a big problem for me as I age. I don't know that I'm going to age gracefully the way everybody else thinks, but I think my surgeries will become more extreme, and I actually look forward to that stage of my life. I'm not doing any of this just to look like everybody else. The idea of looking extraordinary is sort of appealing to me.
Do you consider yourself addicted?
I don't think that I'm addicted. I think that I have a passion for body modification, and I think I have an eye for detail. And I think that in most other places in our life, that would be applaudable. And people say I'm perfectionistic in my job, we get a pat on the back. So why is it because I have an eye for symmetry and an eye for what I think is beauty that I'm criticized? I just disagree with that notion.
What is the best thing that has come from your surgeries?
I think the best thing for me that has come from my surgeries is probably not the answer you're expecting. It gave me a sense of empowerment. The feeling that I have control over the way people view me and over the way I want to be viewed. I think that that's really, really powerful for me. I think that it gave me a lot of confidence. I think the same way maybe people would go and spend money on, they're going to spend $3,000 on a suit. And when you wear it, you feel great about yourself and you feel like you've made it and you've earned your place and that life's good, right? I mean, hopefully that's the way you feel if you put on something like that. And I just get to wear mine all the time. So that feeling like I'm worth it and that I'm important is consistent for me every time I look in the mirror. I deserve the best that I can have from a partner, from a life, from a career. And I think every time I look at how much I've invested in my body, it makes me want to work that much harder in the other aspects of my life.
Can you elaborate on your career a little bit and tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Sure. So what we're offering now is a plastic surgery referral and consultation service. So I have a lot of people that have written in from all around the world ever since I've been on the television asking for referrals to the doctors that I've used in the past for everything from typical nose jobs, facelifts, all the way to a lot of the body augmentation I've done with the muscle implants and the customizing of those implants. So what I'm offering is a turnkey concierge service to walk people through the process. That can be very difficult. In order to pick out a doctor you want and hopefully know that you have the best doctor, that you researched their work and their credentials. Also, all of the areas that they're holding surgeries in their surgery center, whether that's on-site or it's at a hospital, and everything through that into aftercare with privatized nursing or aftercare facilities. And so, for what I would consider a fairly nominal fee, I sit down and do a consultation, and sometimes we're booking things up to $30,000 or $40,000 remodels on people where we're doing combo surgeries. And it's not really all about the money. I don't think it's going to make me $1 million a year, but it's a way for me to be able to share with other people, to stay in touch with the doctors, and to stay current with a lot of the products. I think regardless of whether or not that career was there, I would still be doing those things, maybe not to this extent, but it is an exciting new venture for me. And it definitely helps keep me busy and on my toes as far as thinking outside of the box.
I'm very curious about your sex life. How do you receive pleasure with all of the silicone in your body?
Roughly. Honestly, I don't have any diminished sensation anywhere. You go through that little bit of healing time, and sometimes the nerves can feel a little off, like when your foot falls asleep. But sometimes it doesn't happen at all, and it's totally fine. Typically, those nerves will regrow, and all of my sensations have returned back to normal the way they were. So, I enjoy sex, but it's not something that's ever been affected in a negative way through my procedures.
I'm also very fascinated by penile extensions and how they work. Can you talk about them a little bit?
So, yeah, I of course, looked into that a long time ago, and I stay abreast with it with a couple different doctors. So there's a lot of different venues to go. Obviously, there's full-on silicone implants that are subcutaneous under the skin to give length and girth. There's injectables, things like silicone, fat transfer, alloderm sheets that are feasible to have implanted and then grow into your natural tissue. Some of them are kind of questionable, but, I'm here to sort of educate people, and then they can make their own decisions. And, I definitely tell people whether or not I think it's a valid procedure, but nonetheless, it's not my decision to sort of judge people, and their decisions at the end of the day are theirs. So I'm just there to pose all of the options. But there definitely are different methods to sort of get length or girth with your penis. Obviously, the one that's been around the longest is probably going to be the ligament cut. So you can gain anywhere from 0 to 2 inches after the procedure, but, they never give you the guarantee. You obviously know you can have the procedure and then have no gain. But I've definitely seen a lot of people that have had it and have come out very happy.
That is awesome. And have you had that as well?
No, I have not had that. But I would never say never, in the words of Justin Bieber.
Yes, I was very curious because I wanted to know almost like if that sensation still stays there, like how you were saying with all of your other procedures.
Well, I mean, the people that I know who've had it are fine. I mean, depending if they've had an actual surgery or they just had injections, obviously their recovery can be completely different. I mean, the full-on surgery where they do the implant for people, they recommend no form of sexual stimulation for a period of a month. And so while I do know people who've had it, and I think it's hard for them not to return back to an active sex life, they obviously advise against it. Something simple like injections, I mean, you can probably go back to normal activity after a few days. So it really depends what degree commitment you want to have to the surgical side or to injectable side of it. There's a lot of options.
Justin, what is next in your life, and what do you have planned for the future?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of aspirations at this point. With all of this newfound publicity and fame, it's really exciting to have a venue for people to sort of listen to me and sort of share my thoughts. But, we're working with the consulting business. I'd like to be able to structure a reality TV show around that. I think it'd be pretty cool to sort of follow us through the patient consultations and meeting with the doctors, and then after their remodels. I mean, I have some very interesting people that I've consulted with that I think would make a really interesting television show as sort of a docu-series type piece. And so I'm out pitching that avidly at this moment. I'm working on a book. I'm just in the infantile stages of working on a book. It'll be a collaboration with me and 2 co-authors. Is sort of what I'm looking at the moment. Hopefully it all works out. And beyond that, I really would like to do a custom augmentation muscle implant line. So, these implants that I'm having to make for myself are extremely costly because I'm having to make all the molds custom fit for my body. There's nothing like them on the market, so you can't just go to a doctor and say, hey, I want to do my deltoids the way Justin did them. I'd like to do my quads. I'd like to do my lats. Those surgeries don't even exist for you to go into a doctor's office and inquire about. And moreover, most doctors are probably going to look at you like you have 5 heads if you walked into the office and said that. no matter if it was for cosmetic or reconstructive purposes. So, for me to say, hey, I'd like to sanction my own line, I've signed with a silicone manufacturing company, a non-disclosure, and I'm looking for a silicone distribution company to sort of pair with and go through that process to hopefully be able to get that implant line active. But I don't know if it's going to be $1 million idea overnight, but I definitely think it's an option that should be given to the consumers. And it shouldn't be something where men should feel judged just for going in for a surgical process. Plastic surgery isn't something that needs to be just kept for females.
Well, Justin, I would love to come back and interview you once again once you do have that book and that reality show to show how far you've come between now and then. And then also, what is next for your surgeries and when do you think you might be done?
Oh, well, I'll jump to that last one. Hopefully never. I don't ever see an end. There's no real goal in mind. There's no real end point. So I can't ever say I think I'd be finished. I hope not, because that would just mean that I just stopped being creative. It's sort of like asking Picasso not to paint anymore. He did abstracted portraits of people, and what I'm doing is sort of abstracting the human form. And while not everybody might think of it as art, I enjoy it in the same way I'm sure Picasso did his pieces, and it became his niche. You didn't have him paint one and then say, okay, that's enough, put down the paintbrush. Just equally so, I wouldn't expect anyone to really assume that I was ever going to stop doing my transformation just because they have any sort of weird vibes about changing the human form. My next surgery would be my lat muscles, and after that, I'm going to work on my 8-pack. I've actually already templated it. I just, at the moment, have a hard time getting over the price the doctors quoted me. So, but those will be the next 2 on the roster. That'll finish out, for the moment, my thought process on my upper body, and then I'll move on to legs.
Wow. Very fascinating. Now, I have one last question for you, and that is for someone who is really wanting to do surgery but is scared about it. What is your advice for them or for everyone else who maybe has thought about it but is not sure?
I think the key is being educated. Go and get educated by the process. Take a couple consultations with doctors and really sort of listen to the pros and the cons of what the possibilities with the negatives are. And then you just have to weigh it with, is the positive worth the possible negative? You have to be committed full on to the process. Once you start it, there's no going back. Things don't always go 100% correct. But I think at the end of the day, typically it's made a positive benefit for most people that I've met. So really just be informed with your decision, and don't be scared of something that's surgical. I think you have to use caution, but it can definitely make a benefit that's extremely worthwhile in everyone's life.
Very cool, Justin. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I truly appreciate it. You have been extremely intriguing and very extraordinary.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. You have a great day.
You as well. And for all of you listeners, make sure that you stay tuned with Lifestyles with Nick as I bring you the interviews that you want to hear. Have a great night and see you next time.